The following story is true.
The year was 1991 when I attended my high school junior prom with my girlfriend at the time. There was nothing unusual about the prom. Hundreds of teenagers in garish dress dancing and partying, crowning their king and queen. Neither I nor my girlfriend were in the popular or cool kids crowd, and we planned on nothing more than a late night stop at a restaurant after the prom ended. As it turned out, we were invited to go along in someone's limo to visit the White Lady's Castle, the ruins of a small villa overlooking the Lake Ontario shore. Local legend held that years ago, a teenage girl ran off on a date with a local boy despite the objections of her overprotective mother. The girl had supposedly stormed out of the house, saying that she was going up to the lake with the boy and would be back that evening. According to the legend, she never returned, and her mother is said to have gone out looking for her missing girl every night for the rest of her days. It's said that her spirit haunts the site to this day, and that illicit teenage lovers parked along the shore would be attacked by her ghost. All that remains of the White Lady's Castle is a single stone wall set into the hillside. Flagstone steps take you from the road below up to a flat grassy area where the structure once stood. Someone in the limo handed out flashlights as we pulled alongside the lake shore and got out. Now, although I've had a few of what I believe to be true paranormal experiences in my life, I didn't think this particular legend could really be true. It all sounded a little too stereotypical of a made-up ghost story for me. We made our way to the hillside and began to climb the steps along the ruined wall. As we reached the top, the moon, which had provided a soft illumination to the lakeshore, suddenly vanished behind the clouds. We found ourselves in a pitch-black clearing. Several of the kids in the group were laughing and trying to scare each other. It was dark that I couldn't see my hand in front of my face, if not for the bobbing lights from the flashlights casting shadows across everyone in the group. I began to get an eerie feeling as I scanned my flashlight around the perimeter of the clearing, the light beam ending abruptly at the trees surrounding us. I couldn't put my finger on it exactly, but it almost felt like we were being watched. I turned back to look into the darkness one last time and shined my flashlight across the tree line, and as my light moved, a face suddenly flashed into view as my light moved by. It was only for a second, but I could clearly make out a stark white face with an oversized mouth full of sharp teeth and deep hollow black eyes. Startled, I quickly shined my light back to the spot where I'd seen the face, but there was nothing there. For a moment, I decided that it must have been my imagination and turned back to leave. When I reached the top of the stairs, however, I heard a wheezing groan from the darkness behind me. I quickly turned back and pointed my flashlight into the darkness. Right in the exact spot where I had seen the ghoulish white face was the outline of a person. A flowing white form was slowly moving towards me, and I could just about make out the oversized mouth and teeth I had seen before. Terrified, I turned and literally ran down the stairs and back out into the light of the moon. My girlfriend and the other kids from the group hadn't even noticed that I'd fallen behind and were beginning to load into the limo across the street. I couldn't bring myself to look back over my shoulder as I climbed in, quietly stunned by what I experienced. Of course, none of them believed my story and assumed I was just goofing around and trying to scare them. But I know what I saw, and I know what I heard. I've been back to the site once or twice over the last 25 years, but only in the daytime. I've come back here today to share my story with you and to ponder the memory of that night at the White Lady's Castle. I'm currently 18 years old, and I've recently come back to reality after a period of darkness. I was raised by many different family members because my parents were 18 when they had me. So I was pretty much raised in the middle of the family rather than just my parents. I just wanted to tell you all of this because I feel like this adds a lot of weight to the situation. I remember one specific event that changed me. July of 2012, I'd calmed down quite a bit and wasn't partying or using any drugs at all. But I suddenly wanted to go to this thing called a barter fair. I live in Washington, and our area is famous for these barter fairs. People come from across the country to go to some of them. They're basically like Woodstock. You come and trade art, food, and anything else you have for something someone else has. It is a huge hippie festival. I've always heard about them and thought it would be awesome to go to. I found out there was a small one not too far from where I lived. So I talked to some of my friends, and they let me ride with them there. I was so excited because I thought it would be awesome, as I love hippie culture. Boy, was I wrong. We were walking and met up with whoever we needed to see. There was 5 of us, and it was nighttime. There were probably about 150 people there, but maybe more. I was very excited, but nervous because I didn't know what to expect. We began to walk around, and I immediately felt uncomfortable. The kind of people that were here were not good people. I was beginning to get very scared. There was a huge bonfire with many people huddled around it playing drums, gazing into the fire. It was almost like they were worshipping the fire to me. There were even fire dancers and people lying on the ground in random places. There were, it seemed, hundreds of tents. You could tell that people lived there. This is where it got really freaky for me. As we were walking back, we were all perfectly fine, laughing and talking and having a good time, being rowdy teenagers, but the next thing, we all began to hear some blood-curdling screams. It was the most horrific thing I have heard in my entire lifetime. The sound was then getting extremely loud. Their screams began to get very intense, and the sounds were extremely disturbing and gross. This is when it began to scare us. When we felt like the noise was on top of us, then it just abruptly stopped. Just like that. It quit when we felt like we were right next to it. When it stopped, we were all swept with a feeling of extreme evil. I remember feeling almost every negative emotion, while feeling extremely filthy and disgusting, like I wanted to throw up. I remember looking at my friends' faces, and they all had a look of horror on their faces as well. I was so scared, I started to feel lightheaded. I put my head down for a second. It didn't help at all. As I lifted my head, my entire field of vision went black, and I couldn't see anything. Then I saw an evil face with about 10 eyes and tons of teeth. The face looked like a red dragon. The face was snarling, and it was looking right at me. It seems as if it was floating right towards me, right into me. And it scared me so bad. My friends were all freaking out, asking me what was wrong. I didn't even tell them what even happened because they wouldn't have believed me. I was extremely frightened after that, and I just wanted to leave. I was so relieved we left. I just wanted to be safe in my home. It was the most traumatizing thing I have ever experienced in my life.
I was full of fear. So this was in July, and for the next couple of months, I wouldn't leave the house. I would sleep all day, and I was always scared. I would have so many negative feelings. There was darkness in my mind. I would see entities everywhere. They would manifest everywhere around me all the time. I just felt horrible. I became depressed and hopeless. My family said they have never seen me like this before. I wouldn't let my girlfriend see me for about a month. I just felt so alone and so scared constantly. I would also have nightmares. I don't know how to explain the things I just saw, but I would see negative energy all around me floating through the air, like a fog. It would move and interact with me. These little clouds of fog would bend like water does with light. They would distort whatever images were behind them. They were extremely cold, and they were always in my room. Sometimes they would even turn blackish or an indigo color. I eventually recovered from all this demonic garbage that I experienced over this traumatic incident. And now I can say that I am fully happy again. I believe that this was all a demonic encounter. And I'm just so happy that I have somewhere to vent, or at least tell my experiences to.